All right, good morning. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for Tuesday, February 27th, 2024. It is 9:03 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. To my left is Vice Chair Commissioner Wayne Fournier. We have Commissioners Carolina Mejia, Gary Edwards, and Emily Klaus on Zoom, and our Assistant County Manager Rob Gelder here in the boardroom. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. Okay, we're set for an hour and a half to review primarily to review the proposed agenda for next week's meeting, which will be March 5th. So we will start with that. And that meeting would get kicked off at 2 p.m. per usual, with Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Fournier, approval of the agenda and approval of board meeting minutes. No dates are there, but I assume that will be added. Clerk, set of minutes to be approved.
The line item, I believe, line item will be removed.
Removed, okay. Yeah, we haven't had that for a bit, okay. Next up would be a presentation, proclamation for Women's History Month.
And we do have an invitation out to the president of our local League of Women Voters, but we're awaiting confirmation, and hopefully we'll get that solidified before next Tuesday.
Any questions on the proclamation or preliminary items from the board? Okay, hearing none, we'll go up to opportunity for the public to address the board. County manager's update. Are we anticipating any updates?
Not at this time.
Okay. Consent agenda is items A through K. 3A is an auditor's item, U.S. Department of Justice Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant.
So I don't see anyone from the auditor's office. Specifically, these are grant funds to support the physical security improvements at the new election center at Mottman. I think the approximate amount of those funds will be $25,609. And one of those things that is made possible because of the adoption of the EEOP that we took action on last week.
Yeah, I was going to mention that we have heard about this for some time at a high level because of the EOP issues, but so this is finally the realization of that. Any questions? Okay, item 3B, Sheriff's Department item, SWAT Memorandum of Understanding with Lewis County Sheriff's Office.
I do not see Heidi or Dave online. This is a memorandum of understanding that would allow for a mutual aid with the SWAT team activation and deployment in the event of an emergent situation outside of patrol capabilities with Lewis County Sheriff's Office. And this facilitates the Sheriff's Office in Lewis County making a request for that mutual aid response from Thurston County.
Okay, so it's not.
As far as I know, there's no fiscal implications in this. It's just as is fairly pro forma that there are often mutual aid agreements between law enforcement jurisdictions.
Okay, do board members have any questions, either maybe to tee up for? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go to item 3C. Treasurer item, sale of tax title property via private negotiation. This is the one from yesterday?
Correct. This is the same topic as yesterday that we had a longer conversation around. Treasurer Gadman is here with us if the board has any additional questions at this point in time. It is, per the board direction, was to leave this item on next Tuesday's meeting, and then be able to do a little bit more background. And Commissioner Mejia was hoping to bring some additional information after a conversation with the local community members.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Treasurer Gadman. Any questions for the treasurer? I know we're going to circle back here on this one and maybe have another discussion next week if Commissioner Mejia has any other input. Commissioner Mejia, go ahead.
Thank you. We did reach out to the constituents and let them know. So we'll be touching more base with them again and seeing like um, if there is interest or not.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I did have an opportunity to talk with Kane Chun, who's an adjoining property owner, and he said that he has been wondering how he could purchase that property for years now, and is very interested in it. And I know that I have a difference of opinion with the treasurer on this particular issue. I believe that we are talking about adjusting the process. We've been talking about that for 6 months or so. We have not accomplished anything. I would say that a simple process of posting a property prior to this type of a sale, just that it's up for sale, if you're interested, call such and such, would solve the problem. Anyway, he's gonna be in touch with the treasurer about how he may be able to proceed yet. And I don't know where the treasurer's at on commitment or anything, but I am opposed to selling this property the way it's being sold. And am asking to remove this sale from this date coming up on the 5th until Mr. Chun has an opportunity to discuss this with the treasurer.
Sorry, just to point of clarification, I think Mr. Chun's parcel is separated from the tax title parcel by a small portion that is in Public Works control.
Well,
there's a small little slice.
This is a map. I'm told this is the property being sold,
Nope,
and this is Mr. Chun.
This is the property that is under consideration for sale. This is actually under Public Works control.
Okay. Well, that even makes it more interesting to me as to why, if something was done here, because if you consolidated those two properties, that property could become a $70,000 property because it would be buildable.
No, because it does not have access to water or sewer and never will.
Well, never is a long time, and I don't believe in never. So it's just my opinion, and I respect your opinion, sir, but I think that there's a possibility here that the taxpayers could come out better.
So the only way that that parcel will have access to sewer is if the county expands that plant. When the county built that plant, they specifically contacted every single property owner out there to determine what capacity was needed and asked them. And if the property owner declined, then that was it. And at this point, talking to Jennifer Walker, there's absolutely zero interest in expanding that plant at this point.
Jennifer Walker's come and go. Let's see what happens in the future.
Well, and I agree with that, but the other issue that we've got is now we've got a negotiated sale agreement. And yes, it is up for your approval. But the prosecutors advised me that once we have that agreement to this point, I really can't go out and negotiate with anybody else.
Well, I disagree with that as well. So my position is I am here to represent the citizens of Thurston County, get them the best deal I can, and to be fair with all of them. And I don't think that is taking place at this sale. So that's where I'm at, and I commend you again for trying to dispose of properties and get them back on the tax rolls. I just don't think it's being handled properly, and that's, that's what makes this country so great. We've got
Absolutely.
democratic discussion that we can have on how we do business for the citizens of Thurston County. That's where I'm at.
And just to know that Central Services, after the prior board discussion, Robin has provided direction to Central Services. They are in the process of unfolding a more proactive approach to notifying adjoining property owners of the availability of tax title. in there. That is going to take time to execute, but it is underway.
I do appreciate that, but we've been kicking this can down the road for over a year now. I've been objecting to these type of sales. So I just think that it's a fairness issue, and I think this citizen is getting the shaft in the end, and I don't think that's fair. So that's just my opinion.
Commissioner Mejia?
Can I ask a point for clarification from the treasurer?
Go ahead.
Treasurer Gadman, so yesterday in our discussion, right, we said if the, let's say the association was interested in the purchase of this, that they could contact you and then it would go to auction. And I'm wondering if, and you just mentioned that a sale could not be negotiated with anyone else. So I guess just what is the process for that then? Like, is it, if the association were to be interested, or as, you know, this resident who lives right by the property is interested, does this go to auction then, or can it no longer just, it's kind of set in stone?
No, it can go to auction, but once I have a sale agreement to this point, I can't negotiate with anybody else. So if I get multiple interests, then I would take it to auction. So yes, that can happen, but like if the association came to me, I could not negotiate a purchase agreement with them.
Chair.
Basically, the board has to reject this offer that is before them.
Correct.
Well, if we reject the offer, then the treasurer has the ability to take up this discussion. What is the sale price now on your current negotiation?
2,600 and some change.
So under $3,000.
Yes.
I think that this county is so strapped for money that every penny counts. We've got that adjoining property that Public Works has said they do not want. So I think we should make an effort, whatever that takes, to see if we couldn't consolidate properties, see if somebody's interested in bidding on that property, and let them figure out through the legal process if they may or may not be eligible to get in on whatever's public services, septic, water, whatever it might be. Today's day and age, they have those toilet systems that don't even take hookup. I don't know, they deteriorate, burn, do something. I don't know exactly what they do, and they're hauled away. So I just think it is well worth exploring for the benefit of the citizens of Thurston County that we deny this sale at this point so the treasurer can negotiate with other individuals.
If I get multiple interests in this property, which, you know, a second organization or individual coming forward, it's gonna go to auction, which means there's no guarantee that any of the people that have contacted us are gonna get it, obviously. As far as the sale price, remember, so we can't consolidate tax title with county-owned property because they're not the same thing. And remember, whatever sale price this is, county only gets their dime out of every dollar. They don't get the full vote.
What's the cost of an auction? You were talking about stuff. How many will we spend? $2,000 conducting an auction, all the different paperwork and pieces of it?
I don't have an exact number for you. I don't think it would be quite 2,000, but I can get that number.
My concern here is that what Commissioner Edwards describes applies to any, how many textile properties do we have?
175.
Apply to all 175. Why are we picking on the one where somebody actually stepped up and made an offer? Like, to That's a fairness issue to me, to the person that, we could be, and we've had that discussion. We could be contacting property owners and trying to connect all the dots that you're describing for all 175. But we're gonna pick on the guy who actually negotiated an agreement, because he stepped up and actually put on the roll. That makes me feel extremely uncomfortable, especially when the treasurer is saying, the prosecuting attorney is saying, don't do that. So that's where I'm at on it. I mean, I get where, if you were mad about the fact that we haven't gotten far enough with what we talked about last year, totally legit. But to try to then apply that in this context on this one where we have a sale, it makes me really nervous. And we've gone through this before. This is where I've been at in the past, and it's where you've been at in the past, and I don't know how to get there other than getting this new kind of notice system kind of up and running. But go ahead, sir.
Well, let me give a real simple solution would be, let's deny this sale. Let's advise the treasurer if he's gonna sell a property in the future. All he needs to do is put a for sale sign on the property so that we don't have to contact anybody. Just a for sale sign would be a very simple
I
solution.
mean, if someone contacted him, or you saying put up 175 sale signs now and just let him sit there?
Well, where he's getting ready to dispose of one, I think is
But he only gets ready to dispose of one when somebody comes up and shows interest, and then you've got the problem
Let's increase that interest by putting a for sale sign up.
on all of them.
Yes, let's do it. Let's try to raise money for this community, not cost the community money. And all we need to do is put a sign up so that any property owner in the area would say, hey, did you know that county property is over there for sale? Let's see what the process is. Maybe they can get a bid on it. I can tell you, citizens don't know the government process. You could go ask 100 people walking out of the Safeway store, you know how to acquire a piece of county surplus property? And they'd say no. But if you had a sign up on every piece of property, I'm just saying on this one now, because I'm trying to get this process changed.
That's the thing for me. It can't be on this one now for me. It's gotta be on all of them.
Well, I guess
And-
that's our difference.
And I think that you're making a good point. I guess the question is, why don't we throw up a sign on all of them? I mean, is that just why hasn't that been talked about or done in the past?
So first of all, they're countywide. Many of these are not accessible from a public entry point.
So a sign
It's
somewhere you can't see it,
175
makes
signs, so
no
it's gonna
sense.
take some time to put those signs up, right? Then who's gonna maintain them? And who's gonna get the phone calls when the wind knocks one over and blows it over into the neighbor's property? I mean, it's a pretty extensive effort to try to do that. And we gotta remember, you mentioned county surplus, these are not county surplus.
I don't know.
You also can't just go plant a sign, right? If anybody's doing real estate signs, they have to call 811, they have to contact like 5 different utilities, they have to go out and mark those. And so just some yahoo going and putting up a sign's not gonna worry about it. But if you're gonna do it, you've got an actual process that you've gotta respect, because if you mess that up and you break the utility line, it's all bust.
I agree with that. I agree that if you drive a spike into a utility, piece of utility equipment, you're in trouble. But it would be a pretty simple process to develop some relationship, a bid, I don't know, with a realtor, if you wanna do it that way. I don't care if they get 50%, they're not gonna get a lot, but if we generate more revenue with each one of these sales, I think it's beneficial. When you start selling what's the size of that property? I don't know offhand, but
It's only 3,000 square feet.
yeah,
There's a
okay,
thing called the internet, you can put all that information on there.
fine.
It is there.
It is.
I don't know.
It's easily
If,
accessible.
if a citizen is looking to buy surplus property, yes, but every time I've called a citizen that has adjoining property, they've all said they were interested in buying it, they just didn't know the process. I think we work for these citizens. We shouldn't make it a challenge for citizens to try and figure it out if we can help them figure it out. And in the course of helping them figure it out, we can raise money for all the citizens in Thurston County to offset our budget deficits. That's all.
My interest is in any process that stops these conversations from happening every month or so. Because like the money that's being spent today to just discuss this, and with this is, I think we're on maybe 3 hours of this one, over the 3 or 4 meetings we've discussed it, is gonna obliterate any amount of revenue we're gonna get from this property. So whatever the process is that just makes these so that there's a process, it's followed, it's done. We don't debate each one and start making phone calls to adjoining property owners and hemming and hawing and what does the community think, and let's have a Boston Harbor community meeting so that the treasurer can go out. I mean, this is ludicrous to me. We need a process that just lays it out and we follow the process and that's it. And I don't care what it is. Right now, this is the process, so I want to follow it. If I'm totally open to Commissioner Edwards' thought about what a new process would look like, but that's a process question. It's not a debate I want to have about this particular property.
Well, and, I mean, the issue with tax title has always been how many resources, how much do we want to spend to try and sell these? And I'm gonna tell you, a lot of them are never gonna sell, just because of the way they're configured. And
There aren't enough snake farms out there that
right,
need a property that,
right, that's 15 feet wide.
getting the trees and stuff to tell is really valuable, you know?
You know, I mean, we even had an interest on one that was down off of Wattle Creek Road that is 50 feet wide, and 400, I think it was 400 or 700 feet long. And it actually goes across Wattle Creek Road right at the boundary of the forest. And he actually thought he had come up with something that he could do with the property. And that was basically turn it into a campground, right? But he's a developer from Seattle, so he knew what he was doing. And after about 3 or 4 months, he called and said, never mind. He said, it's just not gonna work.
Okay, well, so we gotta make a decision here one way or the other. So Commissioner Edwards has made a motion to remove this from the item.
There'll be a citizen coming in at some point. That's what he said anyway. He's gonna be checking this out. He's wanting this property. It's a fairness issue to me. I work for that citizen. I don't work for anybody here. And so
You don't
I'm
work-
advocating that we.
You don't work for the other citizen that's made an offer and has a negotiated sale and agreement on that property? You only work?
Yes, I want him to have a bid on it as well. I want them both to bid on it. So the county ends up with more revenue. That's what I'm looking for. So I think an auction is great, where the treasurer mentions that maybe neither one of them will get it. Great, I don't care. I'm not working for them in that regard. I'm not advocating for one over the other. I'm advocating for the citizens as a whole to receive more resources. That's what I'm looking for, because our budget is in a big dilemma. And I think we always ought to be looking to do the best we possibly can.
Right now, we have a sale on the line that will have this property contribute to the property tax base. And the longer it sits there, earning zero revenue, it's costing us.
The difference between 2,600 and 26,000 is a lot of money, and I don't know that it'll go for 26,000. If we enhanced its usability by getting rid of this other piece of surplus property, maybe we can get them to bid on both of them. I don't care. I'm not looking to advocate for any one individual. I just want everybody to have access.
Can I make a recommendation?
Please.
I'm saying if there is someone else who's interested, right, they need to contact the treasurer's office and get that process in motion. And I'm happy to call the person and let him know that it's on the calendar for next week, right? But if there is no contact made by next week, then it has to move forward. And I've let the Boston Harbor residents know as well, or the association who contacted me, and let them know that this is on the agenda for next week. And if there is interest, I need to contact the treasurer's office. And if not, then we need to move forward to also be fair to the person who has negotiated the agreement. So
just putting it on a timeline, they just have to contact the treasurer's office before next Tuesday, which that's a week away, and at least demonstrate some interest. That way, the treasurer can, you know, can go through the auction process, or it just gets sold.
On some level, the agenda item has to come forward. There's a negotiated purchase and sale agreement. It's either an action of the board, thumbs up, thumbs down, and then the next step. This needs resolution one way or the other.
The democratic process will prevail here.
So we leave it on the agenda and we'll just vote it up or vote it down?
Correct. And that way, we have the opportunity to hear from others in the week. They could come to the board meeting next week, offer public comment at the beginning, requesting that they have, or conveying they have some interest as well. But ultimately, I mean, unfortunately, none of those other processes can really unfold because we have an offer on the table that has to be either accepted or rejected.
And so I don't want the treasurer to be in any kind of hot water, so to speak. So just so I understand, if somebody comes to you, you can't negotiate another price with them. You'd basically just be saying, if the board won't approve this negotiated sale, then you put it up for auction.
Right.
And that covers your bases in terms of you doing what you need to do to follow the law,
Yes.
so to speak.
Yes.
Okay. Well, then I guess we'll just leave it here for now, and there'll be more to come next week. And maybe it'll go to vote on Tuesday afternoon.
Hopefully sometime in the near future, we won't hear about this anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the question then for either now or next week would be moving this to a department item or leaving it, 'cause it's currently on consent. It sounds like.
I think it's gotta come off consent, no matter what.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so we will move it to a department item so that it
Thank
will
you.
be standalone.
And I've already got an item
Okay,
in the regular agenda, so you can just tack it on.
thank you.
Chair, can we go back to the sheriff's SWAT item? We have Under Sheriff Pearson present.
Oh, yeah, please. I had some questions, but I was just, no one to ask them too. Thanks for being here, guys. Good morning. Oh, yeah, so let me go back to item 3B, SWAT Memorandum of Understanding with Lewis County Sheriff's Office. Under Sheriff Pearsall, why don't you give us kind of a summary of what this is
Sure.
about?
This is just a MOU, memorandum of understanding between us and the Lewis County Sheriff's Office, should they have a need for a SWAT team. Their primary team that they'll call is the State Patrol. But what happened once last year is they called the State Patrol, they weren't available. So, and Lewis County does not have their own team. So they called State Patrol, not available, so they called us, the next nearest one. We went down to Centralia and handled the situation for them. So this is to put into place an agreement, should that happen again, that, you know, this is a mutual aid agreement kind of thing, that if there's any equipment or munitions spent, if we have to use any gas or anything like that, that they'll reimburse us for those costs. As far as overtime and that kind of stuff, we're still on our own, paying our own way there. But they'll cover any cost of anything that's expendable equipment or items that get damaged. You know, I think we've been on one where we've had some drones that have been damaged before, and they would take care of that kind of cost. So and it also indemnifies our partner agencies that are with us as well. So, some of the cities had a little bit of heartburn about going all the way out into another county with people assigned to our team. And so they wanted something in place, and so this is in place, so everybody's taken care of. It's been through, the prosecutor's office and through RISC both.
Okay, great. It didn't seem like something I'd seen before, which is why I just was hoping for
Yeah.
some kind of summary, so that you just explained why that would be.
And I brought Chief Mancias, if you have any general questions about the SWAT team, he's the expert on the SWAT team, so if you have anything, you can ask him, but.
Questions for our sheriff's team?
Questions? Thank you.
Can I ask
Yes, ma'am.
so there's no financial implications?
No.
And then you've spoken with Risk, I'm wondering, so that something happens in Lewis County that involves one of our officers, who holds the liability kind of at that time? Does it come back to us, like?
It's if something happens to one of our officers, like gets injured or,
Or someone gets in, I'm just wondering, like, who holds the liability
Yeah.
if something happens to
they're
them?
holding the liability and indemnifying their people. Should anything happen with our people, they're covering through that. If anything happens to our person, injury or something like that, then of course it's L&I that kicks in and.
So this is just formalizing basically the relationship. It's been already happening, it's just actually putting it in paper that it's.
Right, it's been happening for many years.
And there are financial implications. So like if we sent our people down there for an incident that we wouldn't send them to, we'd be covering their pay and their overtime. But the concept of a mutual aid agreement is Lewis County somehow reciprocates that. What do
No.
we receive from them mutually?
No, we won't receive any financial.
No,
pay from
I'm
that.
not saying like, the agreement is like, hey, we'll scratch your back, you scratch ours. That's a mutual aid agreement. Well, what do they offer us that reciprocates back to us to make that mutual aid legitimate?
If we had a major issue, say a major riot or something, we needed outside county resources, we could call on them and it would be mutual aid kind of thing. They'd come in and help us out.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
Okay, jumping back to, okay, so that's B. C is gonna come off, become a department item. D is community planning, economic development, certified local government historic preservation grant. Dana Bowers, Jeremy Davis here to give us an overview.
Good morning, Shannon Bowers, Associate Planner with Economic, well, you did it, with CPEC. And this is an item to request approval to accept a grant for $10,000 to hire a consultant to help us update the historic register. So the list of properties that are identified as having significant historic value. So that
Is that
list
a
is.
county-held list, or is that the
County-held
national
list.
list?
That's our local list. So right now we have 58 properties, and the grant funds would be to update the oldest listed properties, not the oldest properties, not like the ones that built first, but the ones that were listed first, because their list archives are the oldest. And so they need it updated with new photos, they need it updated with new information. Is the building still standing? Is it still eligible? That kind of thing. So then the consultant would then review that information and then provide it to the state register. It's called Wizard. It's an online database. And they would provide that documentation to that state database. That's why we need a consultant.
Sounds straightforward to me.
Questions?
Any
Yeah.
questions?
Yeah, and the Historic Commission is already working on updating the register of properties. I've already visited or ascertained information on 30 of the properties in preparation to hire the consultant so we can lower that consultant cost. So they're spending about 150 volunteer hours on this project.
Visited 30. And then, so do they have any other part in this? Like, so they visit, and what is it that they're trying to do to help this process, the Historic Commission?
So the Historic Commission's charge in county code is to actually maintain the Thurston County Historic Register, which is what we're doing with this particular project. And looking at the information at the end of the project, they'll make a decision on properties that we may have to take off of the register because they no longer meet the criteria. So that's why we're doing this, to get it up to date. There also may be citizens out there who don't want to be on the register, and they can voluntarily take themselves off. So, but it is their charge in county code. We haven't updated the register since probably the mid-1990s or so, and some of the properties in the mid-80s, so we're really behind on that. And this will really help us do that and accomplish that work. The Historic Commission first tried for this grant several years ago. We weren't successful. We went back about probably 6 months before representatives from the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, and they awarded us this grant. So they've been working very hard on this project.
I was gonna say, I would imagine that the commission's pretty excited about this. but
Yes, I'm
they're-
very excited.
They're the ones that sought it out for us. All right, that's awesome. Okay, seeing no questions or hands, good to go, thank you.
Right on.
All right, up next is 3E, another CPED item, hearing examiner contract amendment.
Yeah, and with this item, Sharon Rice, hearing examiner, has requested a contract amendment to up her rates for this year, 2024. We would up the subcontractor rates by 10% and her rates by approximately 14%, which is why we're coming to you. The previous approval to her contract did allow the county manager to sign any amendments that result in up to a 10% increase, but hers are 14%. She's requesting to go to $200 an hour, which is still quite reasonable for hearing examiner services. And this would be paid for by application fees from permittees who come before her. So the applicants pay a deposit, which she draws from to pay for her services, so there's no increased cost to the general fund. It's all paid for by permit fees.
So they get paid, they pay the real costs on a case-by-case basis.
Right, and the great thing about our contract with her is she does subcontract for certain services at half to a quarter of her rate, so it does lower the cost for our applicants.
Questions for this one? Nope. Okay, thank you. Up next is F, another CPED. You again, Jeremy? All right, trifecta this morning. Resolution reinstating Fairgrounds and Event Center Manager classification and creating position. I'll stop right there.
Yeah. This position was put in the budget for 2024 for us to hire a fair manager. The idea with this position, again, is after we hire them, that they recoup up to 75%, if I'm not mistaken, 75% of the cost of their overall salary. The salary that HR came up with for this particular position is higher than we anticipated during the budgetary process, but I have worked with the CPED's fiscal manager, Summer Miller, and that for 2024, we will have a sufficient funding in our current budget to cover the increased costs should that come to pass. We, of course, don't know what salary level we'll be hiring this person at, but the top range is above that other level that the board approved for the budget, but we have money.
Okay, which then increases the obligation they've got to backfill the 75%.
Absolutely, it would increase that obligation, sir. And we'll, as soon as the board approves us to move forward with this, hopefully on the 5th, I'm hoping, we'll go out to recruitment as soon as we can to try and get this position filled so we can bring someone on board in time for the fair.
So we approve a salary and then it goes to a department and then somebody within the department looks at that and says, no, that salary's wrong.
How did we get to this item?
Yeah, like the board approves a position and a salary range with that position. There's some magic salary ninja in that
HR.
department
No,
that says, no, that salary's wrong. I'm gonna reassign the
Board
numbers.
approved a budget level for the position.
Okay.
Human Resources went out and did their research on fair managers. I'm assuming in Washington State, and of course they're not here right now, but looked at the salary ranges for that particular position, then also the responsibilities of the position, and developed the salary range for it.
We didn't have the position, so
Right.
HR team goes out and tries to set that for us, and it
Yeah.
turned out to be a little higher than we had guessed when
Yeah.
we were doing the budget.
Well, and when we were doing the budget, we didn't have the benefit of HR's advice on what that salary range would be. We did receive that shortly afterwards, within the last month or so, and so now we have that to move forward with.
Now, what is the range?
That I don't have at my fingertips. Let's see if I can get that out of the EIS here. I believe it goes up to about 115, but I can get that for you. That's in here. Let's see here. There it is. It's on the EIS. It's $7,200 to $9,600 per month is the salary range. And so when we go to hire for that, we would ascertain their knowledge, skills, and abilities and negotiate with that particular applicant. And should we go above the base level, we'll go for county manager approval through the request for higher salary process that the county has established. And I'll actually handle that recruitment process.
So when will this be posted?
We'll post it as soon as we can after the board approves the position and adds it to the county position control.
I'm very excited about this position.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of possibility that can happen, so.
We're also very excited about having a fair manager on board to do this. We would like to see that facility used 365 days out of the year. So,
For more than gun shows.
yep, for the gun shows.
All right. That sounds good. Thank you, Jeremy.
All right.
And let's go to
I
item.
have knives too.
Okay, knives. Yep. That's where I always see the signs around town.
Yeah.
3G, Superior Court, resolution setting terms of employment and compensation for official court reporters classification.
Kristen is not with us this morning, but the terms of employment and compensation of the official court reporters has been amended to include a section describing the work and compensation for a team lead. This individual acts as a lead to the court reporters team of 6 and performs a variety of additional functions as described, including overseeing the complex scheduling of courtroom coverage and acting as a liaison between court reporters, court administration, and the judges. The salary of the official court reporter is $77.18 per month. The official court reporter acting as a lead in a lead capacity would receive an additional $385.90 per month. And the Superior Court will absorb the additional compensation within the existing budget.
Well, we actually approved the team lead a couple of years ago. Or was it last year? No, not last year, the year before that, we approved the team lead for Superior Court. And I guess this is them just integrating.
This is
that-
the terms of employment and compensation that go with that position.
Yeah, it seems like more of an integration into kind of what they're.
I can't say that I'm clear about what's going on here.
We can ask Kristen to be available next Tuesday morning to,
So what it seems like to me, so we approved a team lead a couple of years ago. And so what it seems, just from what Rob just described and what was submitted in the AIS, is basically an integration of that team lead into the court reporter resolution that they have set up for employment terms. So just adding
weren't-
that.
They weren't being paid enough? So we're increasing pay?
I think it's more about the court itself, Superior Court establishing what the framework is for individuals serving in that role as the court reporter. So they have a process of establishing the terms of employment and the compensation that goes with that. So I think it's, my understanding anyway, is that it is a way that they kind of provide the structure around the various roles within the Superior Court.
But there's a financial piece to it too. I mean, it's not in here. I can't look at this item and know what the financial implication is of what the resolution is that we're being asked to approve.
I don't think there's financial implication because we already approved the position. It's already on the maintenance level. Or not approved, you already approved that team lead, so it's already on their maintenance level, so.
Didn't you say something like 385?
Well, the difference between just a regular court reporter, an official court reporter, and person serving as a lead,
Oh, okay.
the lead would receive an additional $385
Oh, okay, okay.
per month.
That has,
It's like a supervisor.
But it's within the Superior Court's existing budget.
and that's not what they're already being paid? That's just a description of the
I
status quo?
believe that is what they're already being paid. This action specifically is to adopt the framework, the terms of employment. So if we look at the document that was included as part of the AIS, it establishes basically the employment and pay guidelines applicable to this classification, talking about salary and that it's a flat monthly rate, and is established through the labor market study conducted by HR, that their schedule is 40 hours per week, and talks about transcripts, the FLSA status of the position, and then specifically amending, what's being amended is, in the adoption of this, are the terms related to the lead work. And a lead worker is an employee that provides leadership and instruction to others in the same classification, so the other court reporters. And the lead assignments may include assisting in the supervision, coaching, prioritizing and scheduling daily work, monitoring, et cetera. So really this action is not so much about the budget piece, but providing clarity about what that lead role is in relation to the other court reporters.
Is this being driven by HR? Do we need to see
No, I
something
think
like
this
this?
is being driven by the court in terms of providing clarity around what the role expectations are for the lead versus a regular court reporter. But I will ask Kristen to pop in next Tuesday morning just to make sure I have not totally gotten it all backward.
I think I'm getting it, so, but yeah, it'd be great to have touch point. She can just zoom in for the next Tuesday. Any other questions from board members? Okay, item H is an HR item, appointments to the Washington County's risk pool.
And Brian is joining us this morning. Give a little background as to what is this?
Okay. This is for the Washington County's risk pool. We have to designate a director, alternate director, risk manager, claims administrator, and safety officer under the interlocal agreement and the bylaws of the pool for the past, I don't know how many years. Commissioner Edwards, you've served
Lot of
as
years.
a lot of years.
I've been on it for 6, I think.
Okay. And Commissioner Edwards has been director. This is a resolution that would name Commissioner Fournier as director and move Commissioner Edwards to the alternate director, as well as name the other alternates, risk manager and safety officer. We do not need to come to the board every year to do this, only when there's a change. So as long as Commissioner Fournier is director and others stay the same, we can just leave this until the next change.
Any questions?
Just
good to me.
formality thing.
Okay, thank you. Brian. Next up is item I, voucher list from week of February 12th. We also have voucher lists from the week of February 19th and 26th as I, J, and K.
And the review of the voucher list for the week of February 12th did not identify any atrium expenses, nor did the voucher list for February 19th, which the board just received at the end of last week, totaling $2,543,931.09. Did not identify any atrium expenses there as well. We should, by the end of this week, receive the voucher list for February 26th, and we'll be able to provide the board with an update next Tuesday morning.
Questions from the board on the vouchers?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
On professional services, there is a contract,
Which one are we looking at?
page 14 of 36. There's a contract for $5,189. I'm just curious what that is.
I will have to check and get back to you.
Okay, that's the only thing I was wondering about.
Okay, yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that without doing a little bit more digging as to what that expense was for.
I don't get access to those before your meeting, but I will put myself on the calendar so that, or the email, so that I can make sure that I get those and I can have those available for you during these meetings.
I don't want it to hold anything up or anything,
Well,
so just see where it
We'll
goes.
double back to you, right? Nicole, thank you. Just check back in with us on that. Okay, let's go to department items. 4A is 2024 lodging tax awards.
And Jenica is here this morning to provide board more information.
Yeah, good morning, Jenica Machado, Economic Development Manager. This is the follow-up action to the 2024 Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meetings and the work sessions that we had. I'm coming to you for the recommended action of approving the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee recommendations. We had 24 applications. They recommended $150,000 to be awarded to 24 applicants. In total, we had over $318,000 in requests, but only $150,000 available to distribute. And so all of that was recommended. I believe you have the attachment that shows each applicant a project summary and then the final LTAC recommendation per applicant. I'm happy to take any questions.
I think we went through this last time, but I'll ask again, like, there's no, if I remember right, this is one where like everyone kind of got half-ish of what they were requesting, and there's nobody that's like, can't use that half, right? I mean, sometimes you have a project where it's like they need the full amount or they can't use the money.
So on the application, there was a space that said, if you are awarded the full amount, how does that change your project? And so we did ask for each applicant to consider that, and the LTAC committee was able to review those answers.
Okay, sounds like we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is 4B, also under Commissioner's Office, option to lease agreement with EDF Renewables Distributed Solutions, Inc. Rebecca Harvey from Climate Program Manager.
In both items 4B and 4C are related. So Rebecca, if you would like to provide the board some background information. And we also have John and Colin online with EDF in case the board has any additional questions.
Okay.
Great. Yes. Good morning, commissioners. Rebecca Harvey, Climate Mitigation Senior Program Manager, joined by the EDF team, John and Colin, as Rob said, and also joined by our other county staff project team, including Jeff Bickford, Craig Sisson from Public Works, and Karen Horowitz from the Prosecuting Attorney's Office. We've all been working very closely together on this. I want to give a brief, I'm just going to share one slide here, just the timeline to give a little bit of background, because we have had a few conversations about a potential solar installation on the Waste and Recovery Center. A couple of our commissioners were not here in 2023 while we were having these discussions. So just to quickly bring everyone up to speed, here's the timeline. We began discussions with EDF Renewables over a year ago, and I first briefed the board on this potential project in January of 2023. In March, EDF Renewables submitted a proposal to Puget Sound Energy's 2023 Distributed Solar and Storage Program for a front-of-the-meter solar photovoltaic system to generate energy directly into Puget Sound Energy's electric grid. In April, Thurston County issued a notice of intent to negotiate lease of up to 25 acres on the Work property for a solar energy system. EDF Renewables was the only entity that responded to the notice, and they provided a proposal for a solar PV system that would be designed and installed in a manner consistent with the best practices for siting solar on closed landfills. Then in August 2023, we got the news from PSC that they had awarded the project to EDFR. They had selected it on their short list of projects that they wanted to move forward with. And they began to discuss with EDFR the negotiation of a power purchase agreement between the two of them. I then came back to the board in October and provided an update on the status of the project. Since then, we have been working with EDFR and the attorneys on both sides to craft the two agreements in a way that meets the developer's needs, Puget Sound Energy's needs, and ensures protection for the county, both legally and operationally. So where we are now, what we're bringing forth is two concurrent agreements. The first one in front of you is the option to lease agreement, which grants EDFR the exclusive right and option to lease a defined project area on the Work property for the purpose of developing, installing, constructing, interconnecting, operating, maintaining, and removing a solar PV generation facility. The agreement establishes an option term of up to 2 years, during which the county and EDFR agree to engage in good faith negotiations regarding a lease of the project area for mutually agreeable terms and conditions. During this term, the county will not use the project area in any way that would conflict or interfere with the installation of an operation of a solar facility. This agreement also allows for EDFR to reimburse the county for legal expenses incurred in the negotiation of a lease up to $40,000. And then secondly is the right of entry and access agreement, which goes hand in hand with the option to lease. This one is granting EDFR the right to enter onto the defined project area on the property to perform what we're calling phase 1 site assessment activities to assess the feasibility of a potential solar PV installation. This agreement is for the same 2-year term as the other one, during which the parties agree to engage in the good faith negotiations regarding a lease of the project area. And the site assessment activities are detailed in Exhibit B to that agreement, and they include surveys, wetland delineation, environmental site assessment, geotechnical studies, civil design and engineering services, local permitting, and environmental permitting. And this agreement prohibits certain invasive activities without the express written permission of the county, such as soil disrupting, digging or boring, destructive testing, and the use of heavy vehicles or construction equipment. Insurance requirements are included, and they are the same between 2 agreements and have been approved by county risk management and vetted and revised and reviewed by both legal teams. I believe that the other boilerplate and the indemnification requirements are also consistent between the 2 agreements. So to conclude, we ask for the board to consider approving both short-term agreements. The next steps would then be for EDFR and Puget Sound Energy to continue negotiating a power purchase agreement and interconnection agreement for the project, and then for the county and EDFR to get started on negotiations for a long-term lease for solar development on the property. And then EDFR would be, with the right of entry agreement in place, would be allowed to come on site and do all the stated site investigation activities with the aim of construction beginning if and when a lease is finalized. And that brings us up to speed. We will take any questions you have. Thanks.
Commissioner Edwards?
Where it refers to the exclusive right, does that exclude other operations that may be able to generate power for our power grid? And I'm specifically concerned about security for a location for terrorist activity or any other activity that we maybe have other alternatives that might be available on that same property. So we're kind of, if we have 2 or 3 different sites around the county in the future, that looks like we'd have 2 or 3 different security needs around the county in the future. I'm wondering about having one site for any potential energy production. I mean, that could include hydrogen, nuclear, diesel backup plants, whatever it is, so that we try to prevent brownouts in the future as the grid continues to grow and the demand grows. So I'm trying to look for some way to maybe have a central location that we would at the same time have a central security system that we'd have to just keep track of one rather than multiple. So is there any thought to that? And does this exclusive clause in here prevent anything from taking place like that? I can see where they'd want to be the only solar outfit there, but what about other options that might become available in the future? Are we limiting ourselves to being able to participate? So.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. One point is, as we've discussed before, the the resilience of the electrical grid. This is actually a program that helps advance that goal. So it is, you know, aligning with some of the other discussions we've had. And I hear you're concerned about the sources of energy on the grid and preventing brownouts in the future. So that's exactly what this distributed solar and energy program is aiming to do. It's aiming to meet the state requirements for clean energy transformation. So that's my first point, is that by if we do move forward with this project, we're using this vacant land that can't be used for anything else to help PSC meet their goals and improve the grid resilience for all of us. So that's one point. And to the question about exclusivity, if I understood your question correctly about future projects with exploring other forms of electricity at other sites, no, the exclusivity clause here would not prohibit any future projects. All it's saying is that for this site, we're setting a term of 2 years during which we agree to negotiate with EDFR for this potential project that's not finalized until that long-term lease is finalized, and that during that term, the county would not alienate the specific project area in a way that would prohibit the construction of this particular solar facility. So does that answer your question? It's very specific to this one site and this just this term period for this one project.
It does basically, but I do think, I think you're putting a lot of work into something here, but I know you're not a lawyer. And so.
Oh, I have a lawyer on the call here.
Oh, we do? Okay, so.
Yes, we do.
I hate to have a lawyer around to reassure that, so.
Karen Horowitz is here.
Are we all up to speed? We're in good shape? I'm just wondering about the future.
Yeah, so good morning, Commissioners. Karen Horowitz with the Prosecuting Attorney's Office. Yeah, I thought Rebecca did an excellent job of answering the question. The exclusivity clause that you're seeing in the option to lease, just as Rebecca said, what it's setting forth is that for the 2-year period of time, the county would be working with EDF Renewables to try to, you know, in good faith, negotiate a lease. The county would be agreeing at that particular site at the work, not to make any use of the site that would, you know, make that project no longer feasible, not to enter into a solar lease of this type with a different entity during that period of time. EDF is the party with whom we would be entering the negotiations. And that's because when we did the notice of intent to lease, EDF was the only party that responded. So there was an opportunity put out there for other companies to come forward and submit proposals, and no one else did. This doesn't bind the county as to any other sites, any other projects, or anything of that nature.
Thank you. That's
Could I ask, since we have our the EDF folks there, I'm curious about, have you done a project similar to this? And how complex would you characterize this project being? I mean, I've seen everything from a few solar panels on a neighbor's roof to like a sea of panels near Las Vegas. I saw that I thought was a lake until I drove up closer and saw it was just an absolute like sea of panels. Like, where does this fall? I mean, do you anticipate this being a really straightforward project, or are there weird complexities to this?
Yeah, no, definitely, and thank you for that question. So I think, relatively speaking, this is a straightforward project. Part of the investigation period is trying to discover if there could be potential fatal flaws to the design of the project, but we just don't know that until we explore the site in a little bit more depth. But high-level landfill projects we're very familiar with. It's something that we do quite often. It's a great opportunity to provide a distributed generation source on, like Rebecca mentioned, an area that has very few other opportunities for commercial development. And so the main difference is we wouldn't be driving piles into the ground. The system would be ballasted on top of the landfill. But other than that, they're basically very, very similar projects to other distributed utility projects that you would see.
Perfect, thank you. Go ahead.
Is there a dog park there now, Rebecca?
There is, yes, on part of the former landfill. It has been turned into a dog park, but not in this exact site. What we've defined as the project area doesn't overlap with the dog park.
You're messing with the dogs, Commissioner.
No, we're not.
No, deal killer.
I think it's a well thought out plan, it looks like to me, so.
How much energy will this generate?
Estimated about 3 megawatts.
What does that equate to in like residences?
John, can you answer that better? But I'm not, my calculations right.
Yeah, I might have to put Colin on the spot in terms of how much that equates into, offsetting homes. The way we look at it is it provides a generation source, a distributed generation source that provides the community and that circuit with power. Just as a comparison, I would say a residential home will have a 5 to 10 kilowatt system. And so we're looking at a 3,000 kilowatt system in terms of the actual size of the system that you would implement, the power that it generates when you're translating that to kilowatt hours, then of course depends on the use of the individual house or the residence. But in general, yeah, it's kind of that the 3,000 kilowatts versus a 5 to 10 kilowatt system you'd put on a house.
Which is the same way I presented it before. It's about 375 times the average home's rooftop installation.
Yeah, I think the typical range you see out there is anywhere from 500 to 1,000 homes per megawatt, and so probably on the lower end here. But yeah, you could say in the general 2,000 roughly range.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate you being here this morning. Thanks, Rebecca. Are we covered there for items B and C then? Looks like it. Let's go on to D, 4D. Set a public hearing for continuing a telecommunications franchise agreement with Michelle Telecom, Inc., DBA Light Curve.
So, good morning, Commissioners. Nicole Martinez, Budget and Fiscal Manager. The item before you is a telecom agreement request from Michelle. They do business as Light Curve, and they were formerly known as Rainier Connect. This is a public hearing request so that they can enter into a franchise agreement. Under Washington law and county code, telecommunications broadband companies that locate network facilities and public rights of ways are required to obtain a local franchise. The franchise agreement is a grant of authorization to use the rights of ways for these purposes and contains terms and conditions that a company must abide by in the use of the public property. So in October of 2017, the county granted a telecommunications franchise to Michelle for a term of 5 years. Michelle and its predecessors have been in the telecom business in Pierce County for a long period of time and was planning to expand into Thurston County based upon its recent acquisition of a small telecom entity in Lacey. We have our counsel, our outside counsel, Ken, and our inside counsel, Julie, who is also on Zoom here, to review the application and then also look over an agreement with them. So this is an item to set the public hearing on March 19th. And at that time, we would ask for you to accept the application and enter into a franchise agreement. Inside of your packet is a memo from Ken, our outside counsel, as well as the agreement. So this is to set that public hearing. And I'm gonna read a little portion from the memo from Ken. And it says the proposed franchise is somewhat similar to other telecommunication franchises that the county has entered into. It is for a term of 10 years and contains obligations regarding Michelle's construction and maintenance of its networks, protections against damage to the county or third-party property, undergoing relocation and abandonment obligations, insurance and indemnification requirements, and general obligations to comply with applicable state and local laws. And Ken mentions here that the county staff and himself, they believe that the provisions of the franchise are appropriate and meet the needs of the county and its residents. So I'm open for any questions. Thank you.
So Rainier Connect is kind of no longer, they're the current, they hold it currently?
So they've changed their names a couple of times, so they're no longer Rainier, they're Michelle, and then now they're also Light Curve. So it is the same entity. They've changed their names, I'm sure their structure underneath, the people who are involved have changed, so they've changed their name 3 times now.
But the business itself is still the same, we just need to
Yes.
recognize that formally, is that what it is?
Right, so they're changing their names to Michelle. We had a agreement with them for 5 years. That term has ended, so now they're asking to do another agreement with us. We were doing 10-year contracts with our other franchise, and so now they're gonna go into a 10-year contract or agreement with us instead of 5 years.
And Julie's also.
And Julie's online if you have any
And
attorney
we
questions.
do have, other agreements with other, providers too, right? This is just gonna be one more, and they're expected to do business the same way and not wreck the road when they dig it up, or fix it when they dig it up, or whatever, huh?
That's correct.
Okay.
This is the agreement we have with any telecom provider to operate within our right of way.
Does this have anything to do with expanding our broadband capabilities that we're trying to do kind of to rural America? We're trying to get it out. Can this help us at all? Can we lean on them and say, hey, well, okay, but you got to do this?
So I can't speak to how far we can lean in on them, but I know that as we have companies that we feel comfortable with working within our right of ways, they do have the ability to expand our broadband.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner McGee.
This is not a question about this specific contract, and maybe just a general question about telecommunications operating in the right-of-way. And then I heard from one constituent a while back that in some places you can charge these telecommunication agencies to use the right-of-way. And I'm wondering, like, can we do that? Is that the case in Washington State? Not?
I'm gonna refer to Julie on
yeah.
how we can charge and who we can charge and how that works.
Yeah, and I think that's a longer discussion, but the short answer is generally yes.
Okay.
But there's a lot more to it than I think we can get into today. But I'm happy to work with staff on like a presentation or something like that if you'd like some more information about that.
Yeah, I would be interested in a briefing in the very far future. It doesn't have to be, it's not a priority, Julia. But I think it'd be good for just knowledge sake. As
Sure.
we ask these questions.
And so just so you know that the franchise, every telecommunications entity that applies for a franchise agreement does pay a $5,000 deposit, and the work that is done by county staff and our outside counsel on the preparation and processing of that application is charged back to the telecommunications company, which is it's a different question than you're asking, I understand, but that's just something else that's going on here.
I may just add one more thing. In the AIS, it mentioned that the notice for this public hearing had already been published, and I just want to clarify that it will be published, and that is on March 4th. And so per RCW, there are like strict requirements on when and how often this is published. And so it has to be published in 3 locations in the county seat, and those 3 locations will be the courthouse, here at the atrium outside the auditor's office, and then at the Olympia Timberland Library, as well as 2 postings in the Olympian. So one will be on March 4th and the other one on March 11th.
Who bird dogs those notices and that they get done in the right place and time? It's not you, is it?
Yeah, so me and my staff will be posting these where they need to be. I work in coordination with Julie to make sure that the public hearing notice is correct and that it has all the necessary information in it. I've drafted it, she's reviewing it, and then they will be posted, and I will coordinate with also the clerk of the board to post them in the Olympian.
Are we done with this topic? When we're done, could I ask about a voucher issue?
Yeah, let's do that.
Do it now?
I think we're done, right?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Being you're here and up on item under consent, under J and K, we don't have that information yet. I'm just wondering, when do we get that to review?
Sure, so I can, as soon as I'm done here with you guys, I just got a copy of that voucher list and I'll look it over and send you that information right away.
And the vouchers lists are actually sent from the auditor's office on a weekly basis. So we are in receipt of the voucher list for February 19th. I think that just arrived, so it was not included on that AIS just yet. And we should have the voucher list for February 26th by this Friday, and we will be able to have that available for the board.
So, but we'll still be voting on this possibly on the following Tuesday.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And recall that the voucher lists are distributed to all of the commissioners.
Sure, I just wondered where it was there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I answered that incorrectly. I'm not necessarily on the distribution list, but we've just worked it out that I will be. So if there are any questions in the future, I'll be able to answer them for you.
I don't want to be overloading you.
Nope.
It sounds like you've got a pretty full plate to me, so.
It's all okay. That's what I'm here for.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go to item 5A, juvenile court probation, single source professional services contract with Heart Strides Therapeutic Horsemanship. Ted Bryan, I see, is on the Zoom to brief the board.
Ted is here.
The single source request, the amount was approved by the TST Advisory Board. It was approved by Julie Kerrigan, reviewed after review in the prosecutor's office, approved by risk management. It's a continuing program that we've had for a number of years with juvenile court that serves all youth in juvenile court, specifically youth struggling with mental health disorders. There's a specific curriculum that we use, and it meets the needs of many kids. It's one of our primary interventions in juvenile court.
You guys have had this for quite a while, is that right, Ted? If I remember right.
Yes.
Any questions on the Heart Strides program?
Yep. Well, I don't know, because we have had this in place a long time. When we changed what originally had been recommended, this didn't get cut off the list or anything, did it? Sometime back. I'm curious how come it's on here now when I thought we approved everything already.
Yeah, no, it's a new contract, and we needed to go through the single source process with the auditor Brandon Weber.
The board approved the TST grants, but
Yeah.
this is a contracting process that followed.
It follows through on that. Could I ask Ted about the computer over there, since he's online?
Go for it.
Anything new on the problems that we took a tour on?
No, sir. Still honestly dead in the water.
And so that outfit that maybe had something, they didn't have the right piece of equipment or something?
They didn't have the right piece of equipment. Jason Ash and his facilities crew followed up with some other sources, and there's just been no movement on the positive for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to 6A, prosecuting attorney resolution amending the Public Records Act policy, and Karen Horowitz from Senior Deputy Prosecuting Attorney here to brief the board.
Hey, good morning, commissioners. So you have items proposing an update to the public records policy and then the public records procedures as well. Policy was last updated in November of 2011, and the procedures were last updated in June of 2012. So just kind of due for a refresh. I think if you go through them, there's not any particularly changes that are going to impact the public in terms of how they're able to make records requests, how they're able to receive their records. The changes sort of put things into the new policy and procedure format. They update references to statutes where, the law might have been recodified. So we were citing, a particular RCW number, and that number is no longer correct any longer. And then they make changes reflecting the fact that back in 2011 and 2012, when the policy and procedures were drafted, we didn't have either an online public records portal where the public could submit their requests. We didn't have a public records unit in the prosecutor's office that works on processing records requests. So it just sort of reflects the existence of those, kind of clarifies that roles that may have been done by the public records coordinators, some of those actions are now being done by the staff in the prosecutor's office, those type of changes. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? No. Good to go. Thanks, Karen.
All right, thank you.
Item 7A, Public Health Social Services, contracts for program management and direct client services related to the LEAD program. I see the next item B is also a healthcare authority contract related to LEAD. So maybe we can handle those together.
And Katie's here for both of them, one of them being revenue and the other implementation. So take it away.
Cool, thank you. Katie Strozik, I'm the opioid response coordinator at Public Health. The first item on the agenda is the subcontracts for our law enforcement assisted diversion program. These are routine contracts to essentially renew services that we already have with Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Service Organization, as well as Olympic Health and Recovery Services. OHRS is essentially the direct service arm of our ASO. Our LEAD program operates as a intensive case management program utilizing peers for case management in order to increase law diversion from arrest for folks who have severe behavioral health issues or are experiencing extreme poverty. These are routine. We've had contracts with the BHASO as well as OHRS for a couple of years now. So these are just to renew services from July 2023 through June 2025. The ASO contract is specifically for program management of the program, and then the contract with OHRS is for the actual direct client services portion. The next item on the agenda is our contract that we hold with Healthcare Authority, and that is the revenue for the program, and that runs the same duration from July 2023 through June 2025.
Questions on these two items for Katie? I'm wondering on item B, when it talks about site programming, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so since the LEAD program is a national evidence-based model, they have it as various sites that are located. So we are the Thurston County site for the LEAD model, and it covers our entire jurisdiction. So it just matches the terminology that's used by the LEAD National Bureau.
Okay. Any other questions on these items? Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Let's go to 7C, request for proposals for Pattison and Offutt Lake Integrated Aquatic Vegetation Management Plan, or IVAMP, development.
And Stuart Whitford with Environmental Health is online to address these, actually this item and the item following D. As the board has had conversations previously about with the new both Pattison and Offutt receiving funding or partial funding from the Department of Ecology to create their initial IVAMPs for the lake management districts. This is an RFP that would be going out on the street to actually secure consulting services for that. And per board direction as well previously was looking to make sure that anyone that was responding would also take into account any reports related to the McAllister Springs geological sensitive area there. So, Stuart?
Yes, thank you. That's a great introduction. So yeah, the first one on the agenda is for Offutt and Pattison. And so this is a combined RFP for the two lakes, and they're both new lake management districts, as you guys know. So we're seeking a qualified aquatic specialist contractor to create two complete integrated aquatic vegetation management plans, or IVAPs, one for Offutt and then a separate one for Pattison Lake. Each plan is to be specific to the unique conditions and needs of each lake. As Mr. Gelder mentioned, McAllister Springs is a unique characteristic of Lake Pattison that we're taking into account, and as per requests from Commissioner Mentzer, there is specific language about the contractor having a complete understanding of the impacts of McAllister Springs to anything that's suggested in the plan in terms of applying aquatic herbicides. They'll be developed using the results of the contractor's thorough study of each lake and will involve close coordination among the project partners to include the steering committees from each lake. Environmental Health Division staff and the contractor. As Mr. Gelder mentioned, each project received $30,000 in grant money from Department of Ecology, and the balance of the project costs, including local match, will be paid for by the Lake Management District funds. So the total cost is like approximately $145,000, $75,000 for Offutt and $70,000 for Lake Pattison.
This is an item that we're probably going to receive public comment on, so I'm gonna ask that when this item is presented, that it goes through kind of several of the specific points, Stuart, just because
sure.
I think the board would appreciate just the clearness in this item, what it actually is, and the new requirements that have been put in place at Commissioner Mentzer's request.
Sure, that's great. I fully understand that.
And I would also suggest maybe that we have a couple of the copies of the RFP already printed for sharing with any members of the public that might be in attendance.
Sorry about that.
On the grant, so $30,000 per lake from ecology, you said? And
From Department of Ecology.
And I know you're pretty new to this whole thing, but I don't remember when we started out on this journey that we were necessarily counting on those grants. I mean, is that kind of new?
No, these funds have been available for years.
Say again?
These programs at Department of Ecology have been available for a number of years now, and so we can take advantage of those, for sure, to offset, the LMD fee cost.
But it is competitive, correct, Stuart? So
it is a competitive grant process. So we submitted these a number of months ago, and we were lucky to be awarded both.
That's great.
Plus the Lake Lawrence one, which is the next one that we'll talk about.
That means it's money that doesn't get taken out of the accounts that the residents have contributed toward their lake.
Exactly. So it benefits the overall budget of the LMDs and provides some more budget flexibility for them to address other needs.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's go then to
Can I ask one more question? I apologize. I know the other item. I'm just wondering, since Offutt and Pattison are new, I'm wondering about. I know that they've been paying into this, and do they have enough funding already for this project?
So because, so this is the first year of assessments being collected.
Okay.
And because we do manage by fund, they will have the opportunity to actually go out, and then that, on some level, right, they will be advanced the funding they need to complete the IVAMs, and then it'll be offset by the collection starting in April, because it all goes through their tax statements with the treasurer's office.
Yeah, I could also add too that in addition to these three RFPs, we'll be bringing back the RFP for submerged aquatic weed management that is going through scoring right now, but we'll go back and request your approval of that process. But in addition to that, there'll be another RFP for basically consulting services to support the LMDs, all the LMDs, because the way it's structured is I am not supposed to be providing them technical assistance. That was the role of the aquatic resource specialist, and that position is no longer available to us. And so the idea is that they would partner on one RFP for consultant services for just efficiency purposes, and that would fill that role of technical support. So having the $60,000 total, or 30 for each of these, is a benefit to free up money to pay for that.
Okay, let's go to the item related to Lawrence Lake phosphorus plan development.
Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and read this. So we are seeking a qualified aquatic specialist to create a complete integrated phosphorus management plan for Lake Lawrence. This plan will be developed in coordination with, of course, the Lake Steering Committee and Environmental Health and the consultant. The plan's purpose set forth the most appropriate and effective measures the steering committee will take or should take to reduce the levels of phosphorus and nitrogen in the lake. And reductions of phosphorus and nitrogen are expected to reduce the frequency and severity of the algae blooms and better control the growth of aquatic weeds. As previously mentioned, this project is funded by a $50,000 grant from the Department of Ecology. The total estimated cost is $107,000. The balance will be paid for with LMD funds. And the project is planned to be completed by December 31st, 2025.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
Is there any talk on any of these bids about mechanical harvesting as an option?
Yes, so like for the IVAMPs, that is, the purpose of the IVAMP is to set up a planning process to develop a plan that everyone can agree to, to include, and we also, in our integrated pest management plan that we have for the county, it pretty severely restricts when and where we would like to apply herbicides, but it is allowed as long as we're considering other means, for example, mechanical harvesting or other ways that we can address the problem without applying herbicides, to a lake. And so, yeah, all of those things will be discussed as part of the plan development process with the consultant, environmental health, and the steering committee. And of course, all those meetings are, public. They're Open Public Meetings Act, and so we encourage everyone to, attend and provide comment on that and things like that.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I think what the board needs to hear as that rolls through is just if something's been considered and then rejected or moved along, like why? Is it
yeah,
it's because it's not going to be effective? It's because it's cost too much? Because there's an environmental consideration that is unique to that particular area? Just if we can understand that and how that process, then we can explain better to our constituents why a certain method was chosen and how we followed our process.
One of the things too, just to give you a little preview, is that we've been working with the leadership of the LMD steering committee specifically to create standard operating procedures. Part of that will be a feedback loop to the board. So as each one of the steering committees creates their annual work plan of what activities they're proposing to do, the board will be able to understand or have that information as well, to know what activities are planned at any given year for those respectively.
All right, thanks, Stuart.
Thank you.
Let's go to item 7E, agreement with Catholic Community Services. And Mark Moffitt is here, Community Program Manager.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mark Moffitt, Public Health and Social Services. Each year we solicit proposals to provide shelter beds for homeless vets. And for the past several years, only Catholic Community Services has applied. And this contract has not changed probably for the last 3 or 4 years. So they will provide up to 3 beds each night for a veteran at a cost of $40 per bed for a total maximum contract amount of $49,275. Now, this is a contract for reimbursement. So if there aren't qualified veterans in there, we don't get charged. So each quarter they'll submit the documentation for each veteran to make sure that they meet the requirements of our Veterans Assistance Program, and then we pay out after that documentation is received.
Any questions on this one? All right, Mark, we'll keep you on for item F, setting a public hearing to consider an ordinance expanding the Veterans Advisory Board membership.
Yes, the Veterans Advisory Board wants to increase the members on the board from 9 to 15. They want to start working on several goals in the program, and they think that using more members on separate committees will help facilitate that strategic planning. So this would just raise, the only change on this ordinance would be moving from 9 members to 15.
I heard a little bit last night at the meeting about their plans for what their goals are and how they're going to use subcommittees, and it sounded pretty exciting. So,
Can you expand on it? Just because usually expansions of advisory boards means more staff time. So I just kind of want to hear what those plans are. Just
Well, Mark can probably lay it out, but they had a strategic planning process they wanted to lay out, and they've got outreach events, and they need to have an event. They were specifically talking about an event-related subcommittee that would kind of put all those pieces together and have that expertise, but I'll let Mark talk more about it.
You're right, Commissioner Menser and Mejia. So in the past, with the 9 members, a lot of the onus has been on county staff to provide that kind of mentorship and direction. With this board, they're kind of taking the reins, and they want to do that strategic planning. They have goals that they want to meet. We talked about one last night with an initiative to help lower the cost of housing for veterans who are spending more than 30% on their housing. And so that would go to a committee. They would work on all the details and then bring it back to the advisory board for a vote. And then if it leaves the advisory board, then we bring it back to you. So I think this is actually going to take some of the strain off of county staff and put that planning process more on the board members.
Can I ask a follow-up, Mark? Thank you for that explanation.
Yep.
I'm wondering, in terms of like quorum, right, and having more people usually includes availability and so I'm just wondering, I'm just trying to make sure that it won't put a lot of pressure on you and other staff, trying to make sure that, you know, we get participation and then trying to fill those seats as well. Usually, you know, on some boards we have a lot of empty seats. Has there been interest from different veterans around the community and their desire to kind of join and participate, or is there going to have to be like a recruitment process for something like this?
Yes, we will have to reach out to more community members. We have had 2 potential members. They said they've already submitted their applications. I haven't seen them yet, but they have been attending board meetings so they understand what's going on and what's expected. And having that quorum has been an issue in the past, and really finding the right members that want to participate and be at the meetings. And as we were looking at this ordinance, the chair realizes that he does have a mechanism to remove people who aren't showing up. So he's really emphasizing that we need to have that participation to make this effective.
All right, thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Let's go to Public Works. Item 8A is a request for qualifications for on-call engineering and professional consulting services.
Karen Weiss is joining us.
Morning, Karen.
Good morning, Commissioners. Karen Weiss, Public Works Assistant Director. So Public Works is requesting authorization to issue a request for qualifications for on-call engineering and professional consulting services. The goal is for us to establish individual contracts with consultants, with consulting companies for engineering and professional consulting services on an on-call basis. This is the first step in a process. After we issue an RFQ, we would receive qualifications, do an evaluation of the consulting firms, and return to the board for authorization to enter into contracts with the companies that are selected through that process. The term that we are proposing for these contracts would be a 5-year term with a 2-year base and 3 one-year renewal options. These contracts provide opportunities, important part of our project delivery. They provide engineering professional consulting services like planning, design, construction, and it's an industry best practice, and that we have these in place so that we can scope and prepare projects to enter the project pipeline. We can augment our staff for vacancies or during peak periods where we need additional resources. We have some synergies between like projects with the consultant, and it provides specialized expertise in areas where we may not be staffed in that area. It also allows for emergency response needs when they occur. The categories that we would be going forward, just to give you a flavor of what these are for bridge design and construction, construction contract management, environmental consulting, geotechnical, solid waste facilities, water and sewer facilities, stormwater, traffic and transportation. So they really encompass the full gamut of what the services are that, the work that we do within Public Works. And so with that, I will leave it open for you to ask questions. I guess I should also say these are to replace expiring on-call consultant contracts that we currently have in place that were put in place in 2018 for a 6-year period and are expiring on July 31st.
Questions for Karen? Seems like you covered it, Karen. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Next up is Treasurer Item 9A, Resolution Adopting the Credit Debit Card Acceptance Policy. Treasurer Gavin, back with us this morning.
Good morning.
Give us a description of this one.
So, the county has a credit and debit card acceptance policy, first passed in 2006. The last revision on this was done in 2016, and there's some ways that the banks do businesses and such that have changed. And so 8 years later, it needs revision just to clarify some things in the policy. If you compare the two, the language is parallel and very, very similar with just some minor tweaks. One thing that we did is strengthen the language in there, stressing that any department or office that wants to begin accepting credit cards needs to get approval of their chosen vendor from the treasurer. Because of the coordination with our central bank account, we need to have a really strong relationship with those vendors. Another minor change is the last version of the policy specifically stated refunds of payments made by credit and debit cards must be refunded to the originating card. So in the way banks do business now, that's only possible for 60 days. And there are some things like deposits that are being taken by the fair, by the parks department and stuff, where they may not be issuing a refund for 6 months. And so it's impossible for them to refund on the same card, that they would need to mail out a check for that. So that just kind of clarifies that a little bit. And it puts the policy into the new policy format.
Questions?
I think Jeff's got it under control.
I've got a really, really good staff that helps a lot.
Could I ask Jeff something? Yes. Hey, just a little follow-up. What do you think, instead of posting all those properties, that we would, just when somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm interested in this property, you say, okay, I've got to put a sign up there for 30 days.
So have Robin set up a meeting with me.
Okay.
So that the two of us can talk, because I think we can refine the process.
Good.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, we have standing items then, and then a public hearing from Public Works on, public hearing to consider application of Public Utility District Number 1, Thurston County, for a non-exclusive franchise for a water system within Thurston County rights-of-way. Craig Sisson, Real Estate Services Manager. I know we've hit this one before, but remind us what this relates to.
This is for Thurston County PUD to have extend their franchise, create a new franchise basically because their last one expired for services within Thurston County rights away.
So an extension of something that we've had in place for some.
Correct. And it expired. It's a 10-year term.
Questions? No. Okay. Thank you, Craig. Easy peasy.
Thank you.
To item 2, proclamations and awards.
Trying something a little bit different with a handheld mic so that,
Oh, wow.
It's, can't miss it. Well, the proclamation for Women's History Month is included in your packet.
Yes.
As Rob mentioned, we've invited the Thurston County League of Women Voters, and I'm certain we'll hear back from them soon. No other updates.
do we have any applications? Oh, that's probably, sorry.
Okay, everybody take a look at that between now and next week, just to make sure the proclamation is updated and doesn't miss anything you feel should be in there. Otherwise, give that in feedback to the clerk. Okay, is there any questions on proclamations and awards? Looks like we're covered till April, we'll have a couple. Then let's go to advisory boards and commissions.
Included in your packet is the Agriculture Advisory Committee's recommendation for the vacant farmer seat. Their recommendation is Donnie Wilcox, and this recommendation was received last week, just after the board mentioned revisiting Donnie's application. So this is here for your review.
Commissioner Mejia.
So, do we have the, yeah.
Application looks good to me.
I was just wondering, do we have the rest of the applications? So if there were 3, do we have the other 2 besides Donnie's?
I can certainly get those.
Well, they reviewed 3.
They reviewed 3.
They're only promoting one.
Yeah, we only have 1, but usually, I mean.
You should see all of them.
Yeah.
I can get those for next week.
I don't have an issue, it's just, but I think it's just, we've usually reviewed all of them.
We can get the other 2 applications and have them for the board's review for the discussion next Tuesday morning.
Okay, any questions on that? Looks like the Fair Board folks are going to be on March 6th by the Fair Board. So that's the list of applicants.
Yes.
All right. If no other questions, we'll go to PIO check-in.
Oh, she's holding the mic for you now.
I have no updates this morning.
Okay. All right, so it's 10:49. We're a little over past schedule. I'm going to ask that we take till 11 to start the planning session, which was scheduled for 10:30, but we'll take 10 minutes and then start up at 11.
So this meeting, then our agenda setting is adjourned.
Agenda setting is adjourned.